Most people spend their entire lives chasing money, working for it, saving it, worrying about it. But almost nobody is taught how money actually works. Not in school, not at work, not even by the people who use it every day. So today, we're going to follow a single dollar through the entire financial system, from the moment you earn it to the moment it either makes you rich or keeps you broke. Let's start. Imagine you just finished a brutal month working at your local McDonald's. You check your email. Payday, you made $2,000. Nice. Then you open your bank account. $1,456. Wait, where did the other $544 go? You scroll down. Federal tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare. Welcome to taxes, the first stop on every dollar's journey. Taxes are the price we pay to live in a functioning society. Roads, schools, police, courts, hospitals, national defense. None of it is free, so every time you earn money, the government takes a slice. Not because it hates you, because that's how civilization pays its bills. Of course, taxes don't stop there. Income tax hits the money you earn. Sales tax hits the money you spend. Capital gains tax hits the money your investments make. It's like your dollar is being followed by a tiny government employee with a clipboard. And then there are Social Security and Medicare. Social Security is essentially a forced retirement program. You contribute while you're working and receive benefits later in life. Medicare helps fund healthcare for older and vulnerable citizens. Then comes the best part. Filing taxes. The government already has most of the information, but it still asks you to calculate the answer yourself. And if you're wrong, good luck. But whether you love taxes or hate them, your dollar has now survived its first challenge. What's left ends up here. The bank. You walk into a bank, deposit $1,000, and leave feeling secure. Most people imagine that money sitting peacefully inside a giant vault, guarded by cameras, steel doors, maybe a dragon. But that's not what happens. Banks don't make money by storing money. They make money by moving it. The bank keeps some money available for withdrawals, but most of the rest gets lent out. Your deposit might help someone buy a house, start a business, purchase a car, or make a decision they'll regret in 6 months. Banks are basically matchmakers. They connect people who have money with people who need money. And that's where our next concept appears. Debt. Debt is simply borrowing money from your future self. You get something today and promise to pay for it tomorrow. Sounds harmless until interest enters the chat. Imagine borrowing $1,000. A year later, you owe $1,100. Why? Because money charges rent. That rent is called interest. When you borrow money, interest is the cost. When you save or invest money, interest becomes the reward. And there are two versions, simple interest and compound interest. Simple interest is straightforward. Borrow $100, pay a fixed fee, done. Compound interest is different. Compound interest is interest earning interest. And then that interest earning more interest. And then that interest earning even more interest. It's like giving your money the ability to reproduce. This is why debt can become dangerous. A missed credit card payment today can become a giant problem tomorrow. But the exact same force can make investors wealthy. A small investment, growing year after year, eventually becomes something enormous. Not because of magic, because of time. But before we get to time, we need to talk about the enemy of every saver, inflation. You buy a bag of chips, looks smaller, costs more. Fantastic. Inflation is what happens when money gradually loses purchasing power. Your $10 bill is still a $10 bill, but it buys less stuff. Less gas, less food, less everything. Why does inflation happen? Sometimes demand rises faster than supply. Sometimes production becomes more expensive. Sometimes global events disrupt supply chains, and sometimes people simply expect prices to rise, which causes them to spend more, which pushes prices even higher. A self-fulfilling prophecy. A little inflation is normal. Around 2% annually is generally considered healthy, But when inflation rises too quickly, problems begin. Savings lose value. Wages struggle to keep up. Families feel pressure. So what happens next? The central bank steps in and raises interest rates. Loans become more expensive. People spend less. Businesses slow down. The economy cools off, which sounds great, until it works too well. Because now we arrive at the next stop, recession. A recession is when economic activity slows significantly. Businesses stop expanding. Hiring slows, consumers spend less. Fear spreads. Companies cut costs. Layoffs begin. Suddenly, people stop buying things they don't absolutely need. The economy enters survival mode. Why do recessions happen? Sometimes interest rates get too high. Sometimes there's a financial crisis, a war, a pandemic, a major shock nobody saw coming. Or sometimes it's simply part of the economic cycle. Boom, peak, bust, recovery. Think of the economy like a giant party. At first, everyone's celebrating, money is flowing, confidence is high. Then somebody checks the bill, and suddenly the music stops. The good news? Recessions don't last forever. Economies recover. Businesses adapt, growth returns. But not everyone survives the ride. And during those difficult periods, one number suddenly becomes very important. Your credit score. A credit score is basically your financial reputation. Not your wealth, your reputation. Lenders want to know one thing. If we lend this person money, will they pay us back? To answer that question, they create a score, usually somewhere between 300 and 850. Higher score, more trust. Lower score, more risk. The score is built using a few factors. Do you pay bills on time? How much of your available credit are you using? How long have your accounts existed? What types of accounts do you have? And how often are you applying for new credit? Every financial decision leaves footprints. Your credit score follows those footprints. Take care of it, and borrowing becomes cheaper. Ignore it, and borrowing becomes expensive. Now let's zoom out, because all of this relies on one strange thing: money itself. Here's the weird part. Money only works because people trust it. Paper money, digital money, gold, even Bitcoin. All of them depend on trust. A dollar bill has value because society collectively agrees it has value. Governments issue it. Central banks manage it. Businesses accept it. People believe in it. And that shared belief keeps the system running. If too much money is created, inflation rises. If too little money exists, economic activity slows. The entire system is a balancing act built on trust. Now here's the problem. If inflation constantly reduces purchasing power, simply saving money isn't enough. Which brings us to investing. Investing is when money starts working for you. Instead of trading time for money, you're using money to generate more money. You can buy stocks, tiny ownership pieces of businesses. You can buy bonds, loans made to governments or companies. You can buy funds, collections of many investments bundled together. You can buy real estate, property that may increase in value over time. Every investment carries risk. Prices move, markets fall, mistakes happen. But the biggest risk isn't volatility. The biggest risk is doing nothing, because inflation never takes a day off. Now let's talk about something most people misunderstand: value. A gold bar isn't valuable because the universe says so. It's valuable because humans say so. The same applies to businesses. Products, services, brands, people. Money follows value. The more problems you solve, the more value you create, the more valuable you become. Steve Jobs didn't become wealthy because people randomly gave him money. Millions of people willingly paid for products they found useful. Doctors solve health problems. Engineers solve technical problems. Entrepreneurs solve customer problems. Value creates wealth. And finally, we arrive at the most powerful force in finance: time. Not intelligence, not luck, not even income. Time. Most people underestimate what a decade can do. A small amount invested consistently, year after year, can grow into something life-changing. Not because you're a genius, not because you picked the perfect stock, because compound growth had enough time to work. This is how ordinary people build extraordinary wealth. They don't beat the system, they use the system. Money grows, interest compounds, investments appreciate, and time quietly does the heavy lifting. Most people think wealth comes from money. It doesn't. Wealth comes from time. Money simply follows. And once you understand that, you stop asking how to get rich quickly and start asking how to stay invested long enough. Because money isn't just paper. It's not numbers on a screen. It's a system that affects every job, every purchase, every investment, every future. Learn how the system works, and you'll make better financial decisions for the rest of your life. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Massey Explained, because every week we break down the ideas, systems, and hidden forces that shape money, business, and the global economy. And the more you understand the game, the better you'll play it.